Cool.
All right, you guys,
Thanks for
we
having
are
us out.
here live. We're trying this it's called Riverside. For those who have not heard of it, for anyone who's into podcasting, this thing is actually sweet because now I can record and get video, and it goes up to 4K, which is better than Zoom. So that's actually the only reason why I got this, is because it has better video quality versus Zoom. And it also has some other cool features. But today we are interviewing and we're talking with my bro Zach. And I am so excited. Like, when I say bro, I mean my little brother. And he has obviously known him my whole life, but more importantly, he's actually been with me and with Rio since the beginning, and before I even started working with Rio, 5 years at least. And so he's got some cool stories. I do want him to talk a little bit about his first time ever knocking, how old he was, and he's unique. He's not like most people. And he got into this really early because I think not forced him, but highly
Yeah, a
encouraged
little
it
bit
upon
forced.
him. kind of a forcing, but we had fun. And so I want him to talk about his just early days, but then we're going to give a discussion about we're going to give 10 tips about hitting double digit days. So of course you have to do 10 tips to get double digit, just to make it fun. But honestly, this is gonna be a fun conversation for you guys. And so each of us have sold multiple double digit days, and I think it's valid. It's coming from people who know what they're saying. And I want to hear from Zach. So Z, let's hear from you, dude.
Yeah, so first year was in Cali. It's kind of
Yeah,
crazy
man.
to think all the way back then. So I'm 22 now. I was 16. So that makes me, it's about 7 years ago, seven and a
Yeah.
half years ago.
16, you're like going into your junior year in high
Junior year of
school.
high school. So it was pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
But it was
For,
definitely just because I had a bigger brother in the industry. And so it was kind of
yeah.
easy to get into it. I had somebody to make me meals.
Yep. Well, not even
uh,
that, dude. You slept with us, right? Oh, no, there was an
no, I
extra.
had my own apartment,
You had
well,
your own
with some
apartment.
roomies.
I forgot.
So I moved out at 16,
You
only
moved
for
out
like
at
a
16
month.
and lived in your
But
own apartment at 16. That's nuts. I actually forgot that.
yeah, so that was like probably the craziest part of the whole experience for me was moving out on my own for the first time at such a young age.
Dude,
But I
that is
didn't have a
facts.
car. I brought my longboard, so anytime I had to go to the grocery store without you, I had to go
On a
longboard.
longboard? Dude, that's hilarious. I totally spaced. That was true. You did bring the longboard. I think you arrived on July 4th. Didn't you arrive on like July 4th?
I think it was like July 3rd because on July 4th we went to the pier or something like that.
Uh-huh. Okay. I remember it was like right around that time. Do you have,
Yeah.
I'm just curious, do you have like one specific memory from your first summer? Like one that sticks out? You're like, dude, I remember that day.
Um, there's just like I never had any huge days that year.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most I got was like 3 in a
Yeah.
day. I feel like we never really knocked that many hours though.
No, we didn't.
What, we started like 1?
We started at like 3. No, we were completely on the wrong mindset. We were there to just hang out and have fun.
But no, it's just like the main thing I remember that summer was people being like extremely nice to me and then comparing it to years in the future because
Yeah.
I was so young.
Yeah.
But I mean, all around, it was just talking to people for me
Mm-hmm.
and worked out, sold some people. The paper contracts was
Dude,
crazy.
your paper contract was crazy. I have one memory, two memories, but one memory that I remember is there was a day where I remember I sold 0 and you sold like 2 or 3 accounts. And I was like so mad. And because I was trying so hard to sell and you were just like selling people. And I was just like, what is going on? And I felt so dumb. And you sold more than me that day. I do remember that. I don't know if you remember that day. I
uh,
remember
I
there's
don't
a
know,
big
honestly.
hill. That's all I remember. Is a huge hill.
I do remember that day because I was at the top of the hill.
Yeah. I
It
remember the
was, and we
huge
had to
hill.
hike it. I think, what was
Yeah.
that city called? I don't remember, but
Yeah. Anyways, so crazy first summer, 16-year-old getting out there, knocking doors, living on his own. He's obviously unique. Not most 16-year-olds be willing to give up a summer to come hang out with their brother and go sell door-to-door pest control. So we'll kind of skip the in-betweens. There's obviously tons of stories we could have in between there, but we're going to kind of talk about over your like time. I can think of your first 10 day you had, and then this
oh
last
yeah.
summer having multiple double-digit days. Um, what what's kind of clicked? What happens? What does it take to get into the double digit zone?
So you like kind of told me 10 things, and I like started to create a list. And I was like, at first, it took me a while. I got like three of them. I was like, I believe in yourself. You can't be afraid of awkwardness, embarrassment. And then all of a sudden, they just started coming. And I think I realized how many things like there are that you do that can really make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the first things that came to my mind was believing in yourself, because there's the one day this past summer. So I can talk about my first 10 days, but this past summer, when I had it wasn't double digits, but the 888. So I had
Mm-hmm.
what 24 in 3 days.
Yeah.
Um, like it was just all about believing in myself and the fact that I wanted it more than the customer wanted it. Like I was looking mad at the time.
Yeah.
I was upset,
Why
and
were
so
you mad?
obvious. So I had just barely me and my girlfriend had just broken up over the summer,
Oh,
and
okay.
so
All right.
uh,
Good.
and so the day that it happened, I remember I called my mom. I was like, "Oh man, I just don't want to knock. This is so stupid. Why am I out here?"
Yeah.
And then she's like, "I mean, like obviously I understand." And then talking about it was helpful. And then all of a sudden just went out, sold eight. Next day I was like, "Oh no, I'm definitely selling eight again." And then did it, and I could have sold more. I stopped myself at eight. That was the sad part. Um, but I just I wasn't thinking about overthinking everything. I was just thinking how I wanted to sell and how I was gonna get it. And it was just a matter of talking to people, and a simple no or not right now wasn't gonna stop me. So I simply wanted it more than they did.
Yeah.
And that's what made the big difference for me on those 3 days.
And you probably
Um
didn't care. I mean, if I had to guess, you really were in an I don't care
uh,
attitude. It's like I
uh,
just got,
there was
emotions were probably running a little high and frustration, and so you're not even kind of worried about bothering people and what they're going to say to you that could, bug you. You're just like, dude, I could care less. I'm kind of at a low point, so I don't need to worry about you and your problems. So that's probably one thing that helped you a ton.
oh yeah, that's I wrote that down too. It's a huge thing. I just didn't care.
Yeah.
Like the awkwardness and the embarrassment, both of those aspects. Yeah, I wanted it more, but
Yeah.
in door to door, there's always going to be awkward moments. There's always going to be times where you ask questions and they're not paying attention. There's always awkward moments, and you just can't care. And I I didn't care about anything those days besides making a sell, and so there just wasn't a thought behind it.
Go. So there you go. So that was one of your days that came to mind. What else? What are other fun like experiences, stories? Like I can think of like the day you sold 11 or 12 or 13. Was it
I
13? I can't remember.
I think it was 11.
11. Yeah.
You're talking about out in
Mm-hmm.
Nolan.
Yeah. And Nolan. Mhm.
Yeah, because we were all selling together, me, you, and Jack.
Yep.
S- So yeah, that day, I'm
That
trying
was
to
a fun
remember
day.
everything.
I want to talk
Oh,
about
that
that
was
day.
the day that clicked for me.
I think that was the day it clicked. That's why I wanted you to talk about that day.
So I mean, I hadn't been doing bad necessarily beforehand, but it was just average. Like I think I was getting like fives, sixes, like consistently around there.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to Nolan. I think the first thing I actually wrote this down in one of my tips, but I was re-knocking that day. I started with re-knocking, and I think that made a huge difference, because re-knocking, all it really is, you preach it, is you're just essentially you're going through the first time the people that aren't there normally, and then when you go down the second time, you're talking to the people that haven't gotten the sales pitch 20,000 times. You're getting it more for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just a lot more receptible to it. So I think that was the first thing that made a big difference for me.
Yep.
It was a Saturday. I was just motivated.
It was
there was nothing
hot.
else to
Remember
it.
how hot it was? It was like inferno. I remember
And because
that was the day that Jack like absolutely
yeah,
like
he was
lost
like
it.
having heat stroke, and oh, I
Yeah.
remember how bad the car smelled. He
The
took off his
car smelled
shirt.
so bad. Oh my gosh.
No,
No,
that
he
was pretty
lost it.
bad.
But no, so
But
that was, and we all sold well, I think, but you just like killed it. You like went on another level.
it was I wish like there was like this like huge like reasoning for it, and it did click. But I think more than anything, the reasoning for me was that I kept limiting myself.
Mm-hmm.
I kept saying I'm a 6 on the door type guy. Like, oh yeah, I can get 10 on a good area. I can get 10 on this, on that. But like that day, we were in the same areas, and I mean, we all did fine. But I remember you guys got like 6 and like I think it was like 6 and 5 or 6 and 7,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't area that was like insane because we were in the exact same neighborhood at the end of the day.
Right.
And I remember I sold. I think I was at like
You
4
stayed
before.
there.
I think I
Me
sold
and Jack
7.
left. Yeah, me and
Yeah,
Jack
you guys are like,
left
oh, this
because
is eh.
we didn't like the neighborhood, and you're like, no, I'm staying in here, and you stayed there and sold like 5 more accounts, and we
Yeah,
like bounced around, sold nothing. It was like a
that's
joke
where
in
I
my head.
got the majority of mine. Well,
Mm-hmm.
it was in that one neighborhood, but I don't remember what I was trying to say about it. But essentially, it just like clicked to me that I'm not a 6-day person. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's just not who I am. Um, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to have like we talked about this in our last meeting actually, but you don't blame bad area, but you also don't blame good days on good areas. And I think that was what clicked for me was because the area wasn't anything crazy, but I had one of my best days that I've had because I had a good contract value too. I think I had like an 800 contract that
Mm-hmm.
day. Um, and so being able to reassure that I'm doing well because of me, not because of an area, is just extremely motivating, and it allows me to set those scary goals. Is what we should be doing is setting scary goals instead of these. Oh yeah, I know I can hit 6, so let's say 6. But instead, oh yeah, I know I'm capable. Like it sounds scary, but I could hit 15, 17. So
Mm-hmm.
like those that should be my goals instead. And same thing with like summer when you look at the overall you can't just hit something like, oh yeah, no, I hit like 230,000. So let's go ahead and let's go for 250. Like
Yeah.
I gotta do something scary. I gotta go double. I gotta
You have
go
you have to
because I
get
know I
yourself.
can.
Mm-hmm. It's been said by a lot of guys in the industry. It's the whole what you were kind of saying is once you realize what you're capable of, it's there's no reason you can't do it again. You can't blame the area, you can't blame it whether it's good or bad. It's just like, dude, I did this. Me, I sold 11 accounts. So if I can sell 11 accounts today, that means I can sell 11 accounts tomorrow. Means I can, and that's your new bar of what you're capable of hitting. And so I know that's one of the things that's clicked for me in hitting double digits is just to reinforce what you said is I know immediately that I am a double digit kind of guy. Like I sell double digits every day. That's just what I believe I'm capable of. And if I don't, it's a fluke. It's not
Yeah.
because of this and that. It was because, I just wasn't in the right mindset and I, try to, point the blame at myself whenever I can. Um, but in the end, it's just, that's who I am. I'm a double digit kind of guy. So going on, so give us some more of your tips. Like what else does it
Yeah.
take to hit a double
So
digit?
I remember another day I was out in Lago Vista, and when I was in Lago Vista, what I was doing, it was a pretty off day at first. It started off pretty off.
Okay.
I think it was like maybe 4 o'clock, and I like not only did I not have any sales, but like I had gotten nowhere.
Okay.
Um, and so what I had started to say is every no that I get, I'm gonna do 50 push-ups. And I
50
did.
push-ups?
Yeah, it was a little bit crazy, but it was like I made like the
Holy
rules in my
cow.
head like legitimate. Like it was like okay,
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gonna do like it's a legitimate no. Like
Like a
it was
qualified no.
possible, a qualified no exactly.
Uh-huh.
So if they were just like not the homeowner didn't answer whatever, I wasn't doing 50 push-ups.
Yeah,
But
okay.
there's two things that it did for me. Number one, obviously, it made me want to stay on the doors longer.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think that made a big difference is it like makes me happy, and you have to be happy on the doors.
Yeah.
There's something about running in between the doors, running, and over the grass instead of just walking all the way around to the
Mm-hmm.
street, and obviously doing 50 push-ups in between each no. I
Would
don't
you
know if it's
do it on the
endorphins.
sidewalk, on the grass?
I
Like
just did it
would
on their driveway.
on their driveway? That's
Yeah,
hilarious. I
I
didn't
didn't
hear this
care.
story. No, that's awesome.
um, And I don't know how many push-ups I ended up doing. It was a lot. They ended up starting to take me a long time because after 200, it started to get pretty hard.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
I think I stopped after a little bit. I think I did it for probably like maybe I think I did 350 push-ups
Holy
throughout the
crap.
course of like 2, 3 hours.
Good job, dude. But
And
then what happened?
I didn't have like an insane day. I wish I said that I could, but I noticed an insane difference on the way that I was interacting with all the customers.
Hmm.
I was happy and I was ready to be there. I don't know if it's the endorphins, whatever it is, but I think movement in between the doors just really like gets you into the mindset of being there. Um, the other thing it did is I feel like I have a hard time when I'm knocking of thinking of what I do wrong on the previous door.
Yeah.
And at this point, this is I'm coming on my sixth summer. Like as much as I'm doing something wrong, it's not big enough to worry about and let affect the rest of my day.
Right.
And so I think it's something allows you to distract yourself and then just go to the next door.
Yeah.
So all I'm trying to say is I think running in between doors and keeping your body movement allows you to stay happier. And I noticed a big difference on that day.
Yeah.
But
You're I
it's kind
think
of random.
it's what you said at the end. It allows you to stay happier because you're moving, but also you can't dwell on the no. You're not allowing your spotty time to like, oh man, what did I do wrong? And oh, if so and so would have been here, they would have closed this account, I'm sure. And then you're playing these demon games. You're just
Yep.
like, no, you're just moving on. You don't even
It's
care.
just
You're
like
like,
it. I feel like it just didn't give me enough time to even think about it. It's just like,
yeah.
oh man, those push-ups were brutal. All of a sudden, I'm at the next door knocking,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yep.
I'm like, oh wait, I gotta look around. Is there any spider webs?
Yep. No, that's perfect.
Um,
Sweet. What
so
else? Give
that
us
was a
give us some
fun
more
day.
tips.
Let's see what else do I have here. I think a big thing comparing my first year with Rio and my second year with Rio, especially compared to this past year, so it's gotten better every year, is routine. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
routine makes a huge difference.
Okay.
You preach this. The bit it starts small, smart's making your bed. I'll be honest, I'm horrible at making my bed. I made sure
Yeah.
to make it before this, but
Good. Good job.
um, but that's the best way to start your day is a routine. And but what we started
But
doing our
why? Why do
last
you think, for like your reason, why is routine helpful to you?
it just it puts you into the mindset. So what happens you wake up without a routine, you go to the meeting, you're still tired and you're just thinking about bed. You're not while you're at the meeting, you're not actually thinking about what happened yesterday, how you can improve, how others can improve. And by the time you get to the doors, you're just barely getting to where you mentally would be at the meeting where you are on the
Mm-hmm.
doors. So it takes until 5 o'clock until you're mentally ready for the doors. So you've
Yeah.
just wasted essentially 3 hours. Compared to when you have a routine, you do the same thing every single day. And so your body's used to it, your mind is used to it, and it knows what time means what.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're at the obviously our routine was we'd wake up, we'd go to the gym, we'd come back and we'd make our huge breakfast, we'd go to the meeting,
Huge
we'd
breakfast,
come.
everyone.
Oh
Just so you know,
yeah.
these breakfasts were ridiculously like
Our
I
house smelled like IHOP every single day, but
no like give them an example of what your breakfast looked like every day. Like
I'm trying to remember
how
everything we
much
did.
did you put
So
on that plate? Like it was
we
sagging
did we did like three Kodiak cakes. I think it was like 5 eggs and then 3 pieces of bacon every day. It was
every
like pretty
day.
much
These
the
boys
exact same thing every single
walking
day.
in with these plates sagging with food. It was hilarious. I loved it though because it was such a
It was
routine.
exact. That was the biggest part is you could tell it was a routine because we
It
came in
was
every single day. The
all holding
timing
their
of us was
plates.
all
Yep.
the exact same time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we'd go back, we'd go eat lunch, and then we'd go out into area. And it allowed us for a couple of things. Number one, we were ready by 1 o'clock.
Yep.
Uh, in the past, when you're not doing a routine, you're just waking up. Well, we would have to time take a nap after the meeting in between doors,
Yeah.
which is like the worst thing you could possibly do. But
Yeah.
we do it anyways because we wanted to. But it all started because we didn't have a routine in the early morning, and
Cool.
so our
So have a
mind was just
routine.
totally ready.
And I totally like some of those examples are awesome examples. So I agree with you. Routine helps. Any other like kind of unique tips? Anything that you kind of like? Yeah, that's kind of like a different idea or different tip than
I,
believe in yourself. Those are all pretty. Yeah, like
yeah,
we all know
exactly.
that those are important.
I wrote down here. It is kind of the believe in yourself, as you said that. I wrote something after. I feel like almost more important, if not probably not more important, but as important is believing in your company, believing in your product. Um, because you can be as confident in yourself as you want, But in the long haul, if you don't believe in the company, then you're believing in yourself and scamming somebody. That's like what you're believing.
Yeah.
You believe that your sales skills are good enough to sell something that's not good. But
Mm-hmm.
if you can have something, like Jack taught me 2 years ago, um, in his pitch, he goes throughout the entire time. He goes, uh, "Cool, and honestly, I know you'll love this product. I know you'll love my service. Just give me a shot." Like being able to confidently say something like that just makes it, whether or not you had an amazing sales pitch, whether or not anything, if you can be confident in the product, they can read that off of you,
Was
and
there a
they will
summer
come
that
after a
you
trust.
didn't really believe in the service versus like
I mean,
how
this
did you?
summer definitely was my yeah. This summer
Yeah.
was definitely my biggest belief in the product.
Uh-huh.
Um, I never
Because I feel like
necessarily,
most people, like let's say this is a first year rep who's never sold pest control or
yeah.
alarms or whatever, and there's it's hard to believe in something you've never really used and personally
Oh
care a
yeah.
ton about.
And then you're on
How
the
do you
door and
get
you're
that
like, oh yeah,
belief?
the company does that.
Yeah, like how do you honestly get that belief? Like, would you say like and get it fast?
um, so I think honestly, as long as you're selling for a good company, go with one of your favorite techs and watch them and talk to your techs. I feel like one of the best things we ever did was we talked to like Brenton about it.
Yeah.
And Brenton was one for like those, like he was one of the just loved his job. He
Yep.
loved spraying and killing bugs, bug
Yep.
tattoo, armed, like all that stuff. And he would just like, to the customers and to us, would just go into detail about how good and how they're not going to see anything around their house. And I think hearing it from somebody that actually gives the product, and when it's somebody that loves pest control as much as him, you kind of have a feeling that he knows what he's talking about.
Yep.
And so I feel like that gave me a lot of trust, is talking to them.
Yeah. Dude,
Um,
shadowing text I think is awesome. So, and anyone who's doing pest control, that means if you're first like just getting into this industry, once you sell an account, that first service, you should honestly help your technician service that account. I think you should go sweep
uh,
those eaves down, watch what they're doing, ask your tech questions. If it's not already a mandatory, like you shadow the tech, like make it, set aside 30 minutes to help commit yourself and really believe in what you're doing. If you're selling for a new company, whether you've done this for a long time, I think it's just as valuable for you to go with that technician and to kind of really feel like why they are, the best to service the account you just sold. And hopefully it's a good experience. And if it's not, then you need to talk to the manager. You need to talk to your regional to figure out how you can get your service to the point where you truly believe in it. Because otherwise, like you said, Z, it's like all you're believing is in yourself, that you're a good salesman.
yeah,
And you're not going to, in my opinion, I don't think you're going to be able to sell really consistently if you don't truly believe in what you're offering. You're
yeah,
just going to have okay days throughout the summer.
no, totally agree. So believing in that, but that was kind of just a one-off tip.
Cool.
Um, one
Any
that I
any
feel
other
like
any other tips that we've missed that we should throw in?
I have a ton here.
Okay,
um,
let's do this. We're gonna go like rapid fire. I want you to hit me
okay,
with like 1 minute, like boom, hit me with the tip, and then move on to the next one. Just
sounds
hit me with
good.
all of
So
them.
I think a big one is being hyped for your area,
Okay.
regardless of whether you picked it, regardless of whatever, whether you've been there before. Because this past summer was a great example. We've been to the same areas 3 years in a row now. Like we
Mm-hmm.
were in Austin, Texas for 3 years, and I've had bad areas in the past, and I go knock it. As long as I have a good mindset, you can absolutely destroy it in there. You've gotten better. People have changed. People have moved. There's different bugs. Like there is always a good area. There's always sales to be had to wherever you are. So just always be hyped for your area. One of the other things I said is to stay in a neighborhood as long as possible. This has to go hand in hand with re-knocking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Staying in the neighborhood is, I feel like, super, super helpful. I feel like some people like to move it up, but you get a pitch per neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like your neighborhood changes for every neighborhood you're in. And if you can stay in a neighborhood for, let's say, a whole like 5 days, by the fifth day, your pitch is almost perfect for that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And you don't have to restart it because that first day, I can almost guarantee you, is going to be less sales than what it would be on those other days. And that goes hand in hand with re-knocking. Is I'm sure you've knocked the neighborhood on by day two.
Mm-hmm.
Day two, you've probably, maybe day 3 if it's a big hood. And then 3 and 4 and 5 are you're able to just talk to those qualified customers that haven't had those people at the doors, like you're getting to do the afternoons on them.
There's some people who I know, even companies I work with, who like they hate reknocking, or they think it's, they're more in the mindset, the low hanging fruit. I mean, I'm just here to get the low hanging fruit. Just let me get that quick sell and move on, quick sell, move on. Your reknocking is definitely more of a mindset of like, let me harvest a neighborhood. Let me go through everything and figure out all the concerns and find every person that I miss. If I've knocked this house 3 times and they haven't answered, it just means I need to knock at a different time and find them home. And it's a totally different approach to sales. And I do agree with the one thought I have, and I don't know if you agree or not, but sometimes it is hard to reknock like every single day. If you're like in a neighborhood 5 days in a row and you're just like reknocking the same hood all those 5 days, it sometimes can get a little draining. So I typically will like say during the non-prime hours, I would typically knock in a different part of my hood, maybe like a neighboring area.
Yeah.
So that way I'm kind of like priming that area for the next day. I almost kind of like say, all right, 1 to 4, I'm in this hood. 5 to 9, I'm reknocking this neighborhood. And then next day, 1 to 4, I'm knocking this. And then 5 to 9, I'm going back into that one neighborhood and knocking that. And I don't always do this, but depending on how big my neighborhood is, sometimes it is helpful. Otherwise, I do get in my head a little bit. I don't know if that's something you do, or if you just like buckle down and you're like, nah, I'm just knocking this. I'm just making it work. What would you do normally?
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree. So like I do think that staying in a neighborhood because you know the pitch is super helpful, but at the same time, as what you're trying to say is don't knock the same doors in the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Because that doesn't do anything because they're most likely going to be at work at the exact same time. Their work doesn't
Right.
change schedules every day. So I totally agree with that part. Find the time, a different time to knock
Yep.
people's house
Because sometimes
or
people just say, oh,
Saturday.
just reknock. And I do think there's a strategy to reknocking. It's like, you
Yeah.
should reknock, just be smart about it. Don't reknock the
Yeah.
same doors at the same times. Like, know that, hey, I was knocking this area these hours. That means I should try this area again, but at a different time. So,
Yep. Just catch the other people. Exactly.
mm-hmm. Cool. Awesome. Hit another
Um,
one.
yeah. So I think you talk about this all the time, having a reason to be there. I think that's a huge thing.
Okay.
Being able to have like we all like have our lock screens and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
What our goals are, why we're there. For me, it's always been college. I'm in aviation, and so school is pretty expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I just barely got my instrument pilot's license, and I'm working on my commercial pilot's license. And I'm stoked to say that I've never had to go into debt or anything like that. And I mean, being financially free has been absolutely amazing for me. So
Yeah. And not just financially free. It's like, you're doing very well for a 22-year-old. How old are you? 22 or
yeah,
23?
22,
22.
22.
Um, you're doing very well for a college 22-year-old, right? Would you say you're feeling pretty good about yourself?
I feel pretty good about myself. Yeah.
You feel very good, and it helps when you have that. So, are you saying, so like in tips for like selling like double digits? Like, are you saying to like have
So
something
while
on
you're
your
on
lock
the
screen, or what are you saying?
I think having something on your lock screen is super helpful, but
Okay.
more than anything, on those harder days when you're like wanting to sit on a bench, when you're wanting to go do, not knock, even when you are knocking, but you're just not like mentally there, which
Mm-hmm.
I find myself doing. I don't usually sit on the curb, but I find myself mindlessly knocking, which
Yeah.
is just as bad. Um, Remind yourself that's why the lock screen's helpful because it helps remind you, but you got to just remind yourself why you're there, so that way you can get back into the mental state of
Mm-hmm.
wanting to actually be on the doors and be the demon on the doors that you can be.
Love it. Um, I had a thought and it just totally escaped me, but I think it had something to do along the lines of like, you you truly are only going to be able to sell how much you understand, like your numbers. This is what it is, like your ratios. You need to know what your numbers need to be every day. Like, to just say, oh, I believe in myself and I can sell 250 accounts, 500 accounts, 1,000 accounts, like whatever your goal is, and then just have that idea. You need to have this broken down into a monthly, weekly, daily, and honestly, and even an hourly ratio. So that way you can be measuring your success. Otherwise, to just like say like, oh, I want to sell this many accounts, and you don't know what it takes to hit that on a day-to-day basis, then you're truly not, you're just kind of lying to yourself. At least you didn't put in the effort you needed to make this happen. And that's been definitely one of my problems in the past. Like I'll say, oh, I want to hit Golden Door this year. I've said that forever. And but I really didn't understand my hourly ratios. I didn't understand what I needed to do on a day-to-day, hour-by-hour basis to hit that. I just kind of had an idea of like, oh, I should sell this many accounts a month, and oh, I just need to sell this much a week. I believe having a lock screen that like not only shows you what you need to do on a summer basis, but on a day and hourly basis, it's going to help you a ton. So then you're like, all right, I'm not motivated right now. And then you look at your lock screen, it's like, okay, I need to sell. An easy one that I've heard, and I'm going to make it my rule this year, is 7 qualified people an hour. Like that's just my new ratio. And, it's every person can kind of distinguish what a qualified person is. But to me, a qualified person is someone who shows interest, someone who is nice, someone who, has pest control and shows a need for it. Like those type of people, that's a qualified interaction. I need to have 7 of those an hour. And if I'm not having 7 of those an hour, then that means I'm failing myself and my goals. Because I know if I can get 7 of those an hour, I can, sell, hopefully half of those. And if I can get to that point, or a fourth of those, and get to a point to where I'm selling 1 to 2 accounts every hour, and then that helps me really, I think, give me an idea of what I need to do, instead of just being like, oh, I hope by the end of the day I have 10 accounts.
Yeah, no, totally agree.
So
Having a lock screen is super helpful with goals and everything.
I agree. Cool. Keep it specific. Awesome. Any other thoughts? Any other tips you want to throw out for the boys and the girls who
One of
might
the
be
other
listening
ones
to
I
this?
don't think too many people think about is, well, obviously be yourself and whatnot, but to go further into detail of that, there's so many different customer profiles.
Yeah.
We talk about it. We split it into 4, and what a lot of people don't understand is that you're gonna be selling the majority of like the matching profiles.
Yeah.
Once you get really really good at the sales game, obviously you can kind of like change your personality a little bit, but more than anything, you're being yourself on the door, and there's going to be people that you just don't vibe with, that don't vibe with you. And you kind of have to almost, in a way, ignore those and go find the people that are like you. And that's when you really have to be yourself around them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that way they're not thinking that you're being like this fake person, because nobody wants to talk to somebody that they feel like aren't being real. Like that's the first thing.
Dude, I wrote this. That's one of the things I wrote down that I wanted to bring. I'm glad you brought it up, because I probably would have forgotten. But like, this is Zach. Just for everyone who can know, Zach was the king until this last year. He was the king of energy on the doors. Like he was just like, and when I say energy, it was too much energy. It was excessive energy, and it wasn't natural. It wasn't authentic. It was you trying your best to be, a happy salesman, offering a great service, and it was overwhelming to people. And I think people could, they liked you and they thought you were nice, and you're, a young man and such a good kid, but they wouldn't buy from you
Yeah.
normally, or at least
They
not
almost
as
felt
much
too
as they should have.
comfortable.
Yeah, because you weren't authentic. And so that whole idea of like, you just need to match people, and specifically find people who you already match with on a just authentic you basis. And then when you find those people, that's when you really need to go hard with them. And so be whatever your version of yourself is. I always say just 110%. It's like, I want to be the best version of myself. Just give it 10% more, just a little bit more energy. I'm not
Like,
asking you to go 200, 300, like this whole new energetic guy. It's like, no, it's just me, like a good version of me with like a little bit more, maybe pep in my step, a little bit more excitement than I normally would. Because you do need to be just a little bit elevated. Otherwise, if you're just kind of like too normal, then you're not going to sell. Would you agree?
oh yeah. If you're, I mean, I guess it depends on what your normal is, but if you're too nonchalant,
Mm-hmm.
then you're not going to sell as much, let's say.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can still sell, but
Yeah. If we're
you
going for double
they want to
digits,
know that you're trying.
yeah, they need to feel, you need to be like the source of their energy, but you
Yep.
can't be unauthentic. So if you're
Yep.
like a super energetic person all the time, then more power to you. But if you're kind of like me and Zach, where we're happy, we're excited people, but we're not constantly on one. We're
Yeah.
just kind of, I would say, pretty average people. Then just show up and be you, but be happy and be a little bit on your toes, so that way you can go with the punches and make if they come out like a lion, or they come out to you like wanting to chat it up about their kids, like make that adjustment quickly so you know how to kind of get on their personality. So
Yeah, with the personality trait that you just barely said, with like lions and all these other like different people that come out super aggressive, people that want to talk about their kids. I think you're always authentic and you're always yourself. It's
mm-hmm.
just what your initial reaction is to those people is what changed. I don't think your personality changes that out through the pitch. I
Okay.
think it's just when a lion comes out, you be quick back. Like
Yep.
your initial reaction, they have to know that you're serious.
Mm-hmm.
When it's, that soccer mom, you have to be able to, oh yeah, no, oh man, you got your kids are at soccer practice. That's awesome.
Yep.
And then you bring it back and then you're yourself. Like don't change yourself, but initially try to match whoever it is.
Just don't change yourself, change the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Change the way you converse with them. If they want to have a quick chit chat, if this person wants you to get down to business, like why the heck are you knocking my door at 8 o'clock at night? Like get to business. Don't match the conversation type they're looking for, and as part of it, part of their body language you should match, but don't change you don't have to become
Yep.
inauthentic. So cool. Do you have any last tips? We're going. This has been great. I didn't
Yeah.
expect this to go this long. So you're doing awesome.
No, that's kind of everything I wrote down. I thought of a few others, but I can't remember them. So there's a
You're
ton of
good.
stuff that can
There's
always.
there's so much. So let's end with this. So you've sold multiple, like I can't even count how many times you've sold double digits. So like your summary for anyone who's this summer is like, dude, I want to sell double digits. I want it first time ever, or somebody who's trying to hit double digits every single day.
Yeah.
What's your summary to those people?
I think the biggest thing is to know that you can do it for starters, um, and to set your goal way above what you're thinking. If your goal is to hit double digits for the first time, make your goal 15, because it's possible. Even for rookies, it doesn't matter. It's completely possible. Um, and then you'll always get closer. You got to be energized on the door. You got to be yourself. Um, and you got to put in the time. I mean, what it comes down to is whether if you're not on the doors, if you're sitting, if you're taking breaks, and you're not mentally there, that's the same thing as not knocking to me, then you won't get those qualified people and you won't be ready for the objections that they're going to give you.
Love it. That was an awesome way to summarize it, dude. You're the best. Thanks for taking the time. And the summer is quickly approaching for us. So this is
Yeah,
for
I'm
all
stoked.
the people who do listen to this. Excited for the summer people, and for those who knock year round. More power to you. Hopefully, this helps you guys a little bit in kind of setting big goals for the summer and hitting your best summer yet. So till the next podcast. Thanks, Mr. Z. Anyone, if you want to reach out to Zach, what should they do? Should they message you on Instagram, or what should they do?
Yeah, Instagram's probably the best way. Zach_Evertson.
Zach_Evertson. If you guys have any questions, reach out to him. I'm sure he'll get back to you and give you some response. So cool. Well, that's everything. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thank you.